Tobias Finch was a man obsessed, not with gold nor land nor even power in the conventional sense. His desires were far more elusive and enigmatic. His obsession was far more insidious, prophecy, the kind of prophecy that whispered secrets of the future and hinted at the end of days. He lived in a world of crumbling manuscripts and half-forgotten lore, where every scroll held a piece of the puzzle he was desperate to solve. His mind a tangled web of cryptic verses and apocalyptic visions, each more vivid and terrifying than the last. His days were spent hunched over ancient parchment, deciphering the faded ink that held the keys to his obsession. His bony finger tracing lines of faded ink, as if by doing so, he could unlock the mysteries of the universe. The room, always dimly lit by a single flickering candle, cast long shadows that danced on the walls. It held the scent of mildew and dust, a testament to years of neglect and solitude. Tobias, however, noticed none of it. His focus was unwavering, his dedication absolute. He was lost in his world, deciphering signs and portents, trying to make sense of the chaos that only he could perceive. A world that existed solely within the brittle pages before him. A world that consumed his every waking moment. The townsfolk saw him as an eccentric, a man out of time and place, a harmless relic of a bygone era, whose warnings were nothing more than the ramblings of a madman. They would often see him shuffling through the market square, his presence a constant, if peculiar, fixture. His cloak wrapped tightly around his gaunt frame, shielding him from the world he barely acknowledged, his eyes burning with an unnerving intensity. He spoke little, his voice a rare and unsettling sound, his words usually cryptic pronouncements about the town's fate, predictions that seemed to come from another realm, pronouncements that were met with amusement rather than concern, the townsfolk dismissing them as mere fantasy. But Tobias cared little for their mockery. Their laughter was but a distant echo in his world of prophecy. He knew the truth, or at least the truth as he saw it, a truth that was both a burden and a gift. He was the only one who could see the storm brewing on the horizon, a storm that would change everything. Nightfall brought no respite from Tobias's obsessive pursuits. As the town settled into slumber, he would stand at the highest point of his rickety house, his voice echoing through the empty cobblestone streets. His words, fueled by his fervent beliefs in the eerie flicker of the moon, painted terrifying pictures of plagues and famines, of divine retribution and infernal wrath. "Repent! Repent!" his voice would boom, sending chills down the spines of the few light sleepers. "The end is nigh. The earth shall tremble, and the heavens shall weep fire." His words, though dismissed by most, found fertile ground in the hearts of the more superstitious residents. Fear, once planted, is a difficult seed to uproot. It spread through the town like a creeping vine, twisting around the hearts of the vulnerable, amplifying their anxieties. Not everyone was swayed by Tobias's brand of fire and brimstone. His fervent speeches and dire warnings fell on many deaf ears. Samuel Briggs, the blacksmith, regarded him with a healthy dose of skepticism. He was a man who trusted in what he could see and touch. A man of logic and pragmatism, Samuel dealt in the tangible, the feel of hammer against metal, the satisfying hiss of cooling iron. His world was one of hard work and clear results. He saw Tobias's pronouncements as the ramblings of a madman, a danger only because they threatened to disrupt the town's hard-earned peace. To Samuel, stability was paramount. Samuel would often find himself shaking his head at the whispers circulating the market square, the hushed conversations about Tobias's latest vision. He couldn't understand why people gave Tobias any credence. He'd seen his fair share of hardship, lived through winters that bit to the bone and summers that scorched the earth. These experiences had taught him resilience and self-reliance. He knew that life was harsh and unpredictable, but it wasn't governed by the whims of some deity, nor was it subject to the interpretations of a self-proclaimed prophet. To him, life was a series of challenges to be faced head-on. "The man's touched," he'd mutter under his breath, his thick fingers tightening around his hammer. He couldn't fathom how others saw wisdom in Tobias's words, always seeing signs and portents where there's none. Samuel believed that people were too quick to see omens in everyday occurrences. While others saw a harbinger of doom in a raven's caw or a particularly harsh winter, Samuel saw nothing more than the natural order of things. To him, these were just parts of the cycle of life, not messages from beyond. Tobias's pronouncements took a sinister turn one particularly stifling summer evening. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, as if the atmosphere itself was warning of impending doom. The air was thick with the threat of rain, and a palpable sense of unease hung over the town square. People moved about with nervous glances, sensing that something was terribly wrong. It was then that Tobias, his eyes wild with a strange light, declared that a plague was upon them. His voice carried an eerie conviction that sent shivers down the spines of those who heard him. "The very air we breathe is poisoned," he shrieked, his voice cracking with fervor. "The Black Death returns. It will spare no one. It stalks our streets, invisible, insidious, waiting to claim its due. The unseen enemy lurks in every shadow, ready to strike." His words, usually met with a mixture of amusement and annoyance, struck a chord of primal fear in the hearts of the townsfolk. They could no longer dismiss him as a mere eccentric. The Black Death, a specter of the past, held a terrifying power over their imaginations. The mere mention of it brought forth images of suffering and death. The memory of it, passed down through generations, was a chilling reminder of their vulnerability, their helplessness in the face of an invisible enemy. They felt the weight of history pressing down on them, a history they were desperate not to repeat.